Thank you. Thank you. In May 2010, this party stood on the threshold of power for the first time in more than a decade. We knew then that it was not just the ordinary duties of office that we were assuming. We were entering into government at a grave moment in the modern history of Britain, at a time when people felt uncertainty, even fear. Here was the challenge: to make an insolvent nation solvent again, to set our country back on the path to prosperity that all can share in, to bring home our troops from danger while keeping our citizens safe from terror, to mend a broken society. 2.5 years later, of course, I can't tell you that all is well, but I can say this: Britain is on the right track. As Prime Minister, it has fallen to me to say some hard things and to help our country face some hard truths. All of my adult life, whatever the difficulties, the British people have at least been confident about one thing: we've thought we can pay our way, that we can earn our living as a major industrial country, and we will always remain one. It has fallen to us to say that we cannot assume that any longer. Unless we act, unless we take difficult, painful decisions, unless we show determination and imagination, Britain may not be in the future what it has been in the past. Because the truth is this: we are in a global race today. And that means an hour of reckoning for countries like ours. Sink or swim, do or decline. To take office, to become the government at such a moment is a duty and an honor. And we will rise to the challenge. Now today, I want to set out a serious argument to this country about how we do that, about how we compete and thrive in this world. How can we make sure that in this century, like the ones before, Britain is on the rise? Nothing matters more. Every battle we fight, every plan we make, every decision we take is to achieve that end: Britain on the rise. Now, though the challenge before us is daunting, I have confidence in our country. Why? Because Britain can deliver. We can do big things. We saw it this summer: the Jubilee, the Olympics, the Paralympics, the best country in the world, and let us say it, with our Queen, the finest head of state on earth. I was recently trying to think of my favorite moment of that extraordinary summer. Was it telling President Hollande that no, we hadn't cheated at the cycling, our wheels weren't rounder than anyone else, we just pedaled faster than the French? No. No, for me, it was seeing that young woman who swam her heart out for years, 9 training sessions a week, 2 hours at a time. My best moment was putting that gold medal around the neck of Ellie Simmonds. And you know something? I'm so grateful for what those Paralympians did. When I used to push my son Ivan around in his wheelchair, I used to think that too many people saw the wheelchair and not the boy. I think today more people would see the boy and not the wheelchair, and that's because of what happened in Britain this summer. And the Olympics showed us something else, something important. Whether our athletes were Scottish, Welsh, English, or from Northern Ireland, they draped themselves in one flag. Now, there was, of course, one person who didn't like that. He's called Alex Salmond. I'm going to go and see him on Monday to sort out that referendum on independence by the end of 2014. Because there are many things I want this coalition government to do. But what could be more important than saving our United Kingdom? So let's say it. We are better together. We will rise together. And let us fight that referendum with everything we've got. There are so many people to thank for this summer. Those that won the bid, those that built the stadia, those that ran the games, that national hero, that Conservative hero you've just heard from, Seb Coe. What a giant he was this summer. But of course, there is also the man who put the smile on all our faces, the zinger on the zip wire, the Conservative Mayor of London, our own Boris Johnson. And those games makers, those extraordinary games makers. I've spent 3 years trying to explain the big society. They did it beautifully in just 3 weeks, and I want to thank them for that as well. Now, there is another group of people who stepped into the breach this summer, and we in this party, we never forget them. Our armed forces have been on the ground in Afghanistan now for over 10 years. 433 men and women have paid the ultimate price and made the ultimate sacrifice. Just last weekend, there was a memorial service for one of the fallen, and the eulogy said this: all that they had, they gave. All that they might have had. All that they had ever been. All that they might ever have become. Beautiful words, painful words. Words we should never forget when we send our young men and women into harm's way to work on our behalf. And for all those who serve, and for their families, I repeat the commitment I made when this government came to office. By the end of 2014, all UK combat operations in Afghanistan will have come to an end. Nearly all our troops will be home, their country proud, their duty done. And let everyone in this hall stand and show how profoundly grateful we are for everything they've done. To meet the challenges that our country faces, we must have confidence in ourselves, confidence as a party. We've been in office for 2.5 years now, and we've done some big, life-changing things. Just ask Clive Stone. I met him years ago when we were in opposition. He had cancer, and he said to me, "The drug I need, it's out there, but they won't give it to me because it's too expensive. Please, if you get in, do something about it." And we have. A new cancer drug fund that has got the latest drugs to more than 21,000 people and counting. And there's a reason. There is a reason we could do that. It's because we made a big decision to protect the NHS from spending cuts. No other party made that commitment, not Labour, not the Liberal Democrats, just us, the Conservatives. And to all those people who said we'd bring the NHS down, I would say this: you've got a point. I'll tell you what's down. Waiting lists down, mixed wards down, the number of managers down, bureaucratic targets down, hospital infections down. And what is up? The number of doctors, the number of dentists, the number of midwives, the number of operations carried out in our NHS. So let no one be in any doubt. This is the party of the NHS, and that is the way it's going to stay. We made another big decision, too, in these difficult times, and that was to go on saving lives abroad. Now, I know that some are skeptical about our aid budget, but picture the scene. You're in a health center in Kinshasa. See the child with the needle in her arm being injected with a yellow fever vaccine. That is the difference between living and dying. How can anyone tell me that is a waste of money? Since we've gathered here in Birmingham on Sunday, British aid money has vaccinated 130,000 children around the world. 130,000 children. You, the Conservative Party, helped to do that, and you should be proud of what you've done. And here's something else this party has done in government. Last December, I was at a European Council in Brussels. It was 3 a.m, and there was a treaty on the table that was not in Britain's interests. And there were 25 people around that table telling me to sign it. But I did something that no other British leader has ever done before. I said, no, Britain comes first, and I vetoed that EU treaty. So, my friends, we're doing big Conservative things. For years, people said, you'll never reform public sector pensions. The trade unions won't stand for it. Well, we've done it, and it's going to cut the cost to the taxpayer almost in half. For years, people said, benefits are out of control. There's nothing you can do about it. Well, because of our welfare cap, no family will be getting more in benefits than the average family earns. For years, people said. For years, people asked, why can't we get rid of those radical preachers who spout hatred about our country, living off the taxpayers? Well, Theresa May, a great Home Secretary, has done it. She's got Abu Hamza on that plane out of our country to face justice. So be proud of what we've done already. 2 million of the lowest paid workers being taken out of income tax altogether. Over 18 million households helped with a freeze in their council tax, and we're freezing it all over again next year too. These are big Conservative things, delivered by this government, made possible by this party. We can deliver. We can do big things. The Olympics, they reminded us how great it feels to be successful. But we mustn't let that give us a warm glow or a false sense of security. All over the world, countries are on the rise. Yes, we've been hearing about India and China for years, but it's hard to believe what is happening in Brazil, in Indonesia, in Nigeria too. Meanwhile, the old powers are on the slide. Now, what do the countries on the rise have in common? They are lean, fit. They're obsessed with enterprise. They're spending money on the future, on education, incredible infrastructure, and technology. And what do countries on the slide have in common? They're fat, sclerotic, over-regulated, spending money on unaffordable welfare systems, huge pension bills, unreformed public services. I sit in those endless meetings in Brussels where we talk forever about Greece, while on the other side of the world, China is growing so fast, they're creating another economy the size of Greece every 3 months. I'm not going to stand here as Prime Minister and allow this country to join the slide. My job, our job, is to make sure that in this 21st century, as in the centuries that came before, our country, Britain, is on the rise. And here we know how that is done. It is the collective result of individual effort and aspiration. The ideas you have, the businesses you start, the hours you put in. Aspiration is the engine of progress. Countries rise when they allow their people to rise. And in this world where brains matter more, where technologies shape our lives, where no one's owed a living, the most powerful resource we have is our people. Not just the scientists, the entrepreneurs, the engineers, not just the teachers, the parents, the nurses, but all our people, including the poorest, those who've never had a chance, never had a job, never had hope. That's why the mission for this government is to build an aspiration nation, to unleash and unlock the promise in all our people. And for us Conservatives, this is not just an economic mission, it is a moral one. It's not just about growth and GDP, it is what has always made our hearts beat faster. Aspiration, people rising from the bottom to the top. Line one, rule one of being a Conservative is that it's not where you come from that counts, it's where you're going. We've been led. We've been led by the daughter of a grocer, the son of a music hall performer, by a Jew when Jews were persecuted, by a woman when women were sidelined. We don't look at the label on the tin, we look at what's in it. Let me put that another way. We don't preach about one nation but practice class war. We just get behind people who want to get on in life. That's right. The doers, the risk takers, the young people who dream of their first paycheck, their first car, their first home. Those people are ready and willing to work hard to get those things. While the other intellectuals of other parties might sneer at people who want to get on in life, we here salute you. They call us the party of the better off. No, we're the party of the want to be better off, those who strive to make a better life for themselves, and we should never be ashamed of saying so. This party, our party, it has a great heart, but we don't like wearing it on our sleeve. Conservatives tend to think, let's just get on with the job and help people and not bang on about it. It's not our style. But there's a problem with that. It leaves a space for others to twist our ideas and distort who we are. The cartoon conservatives who don't care. My mission from the day I became the leader of this party was to change that. Yes, to show that the Conservative Party is for everyone, north or south, black or white, straight or gay, but above all, it was to show that conservative methods are not just the way we grow a strong economy, they're the way to build a big society. That conservative methods are not just good for the strong and the successful, but they're the best way to help the poor, the weak, and the vulnerable. Because it's not enough. It's not enough for us to know our ideas are right. We've got to explain why they're compassionate too. Because here's what we're up against. We say we've got to get the private sector bigger and the public sector smaller. Our opponents call it Tory cuts, slashing the state. No, it's the best way to create the sustainable jobs people need. We say We say help people become independent from welfare. Our opponents call it cruel Tories leaving people to fend for themselves. No, there is only one real route out of poverty, and that is work. We say, of course you've got to insist on a disciplined, rigorous education for your children. Our opponents say, elitist Tories, old-fashioned and out of touch. No, a decent education is the only way to give all our children the chance they need to start in this world. The reason we want to reform schools, to cut welfare dependency, to reduce government spending, is not because we're the same old Tories who want to help the rich. It's because we're the Tories whose ideas help everyone, the poorest the most. A strong private sector, welfare that works, schools that teach. These three things are essential to helping our people to rise. They're essential to our success in this world. And you know what? Labour will fight each and every one of them every step of the way. So these three things are not just the battleground for Britain's future. They are also the battle lines for the next election. And it is a fight we have got to win for our party, for our country, but above all for our nation's future. So to help our people rise, then number one, we need an economy that creates good jobs. We need businesses of every size and every type of industry in every part of the country investing and taking people on. Now, there are some basic things they need in order to do that. They need low interest rates so they can afford to take out a loan. They need confidence that it's worth investing because the customers will be there, whether at home or abroad. Now, getting the deficit down is essential for both those things. That is why our deficit reduction plan is not an alternative to a growth plan. It is the very foundation of our growth plan. It is the only way we will get Britain on the rise. Now, I know that you are asking whether our plan is working. And here's the truth. The damage was worse than we thought, and it's taking longer than we hoped. The world economy, especially in the Eurozone, has been much weaker than expected in the past 2 years. And when some of your big trading partners, like Spain, Ireland, Italy, when they're suffering, they buy less from us. That hurts our growth. It makes it harder for us to pay off our debts. But here is the crucial thing you need to know. Yes, it's worse than we thought. Yes, it's taking longer. But we are making progress. Thanks to the grit and resolve of George Osborne, we have cut a quarter off the deficit in the past 2 years, 25%. That has helped to keep our interest rates at record low levels, keeping mortgages low, leaving more money in your pockets, giving businesses more confidence to invest, creating more jobs. And if you don't believe me, just look at the job creation figures. Since this government took office, over 1 million new jobs have been created in the private sector. That is more net in the last 2 years than Labour managed in 10 years. Now, the Labour politicians who got us into this mess, they say they have a different way out of it. They call it Plan B, and it goes like this. We should stop worrying about deficit reduction, borrow more money, and spend it to boost the economy. It sounds so reasonable when you put it like that. Let me tell you why it's not. Right now, while we've got a deficit, the people we're borrowing money from believe that we'll pay it back because we've set out a tough plan to cut spending and to live within our means. That's why our interest rates are amongst the lowest in the world, even though the deficit left to us by Labour was one of the highest in the world. If we did what Labour want and we watered down our plans, the risk is that the people that we borrow money from would start to question our ability and our resolve to pay off our debts. Some might actually refuse to lend us any money at all. Others would only lend it to us at higher interest rates. That would hurt the economy, and it would hit people hard. If you have a mortgage of £100,000, just a 1% increase in interest rates would mean an extra £1,000 to pay each year. So Labour's plan to borrow more is actually a massive gamble with our economy and our future. It would squander all of the sacrifices we've already made. And let me put it like this. We're here because we spent too much and borrowed too much. How on earth can the answer be more spending and more borrowing? I honestly think that Labour haven't learned a single thing. When they were in office, their answer was always borrow more money. Now they're out of office. It's borrow more money. Whatever the day, whatever the question, whatever the weather, it is borrow more money. Borrow, borrow, borrow. Labour, the party of one notion, borrowing. There are times I wonder whether they know anything about the real economy at all. Did you hear last week what Ed Miliband said about taxes? He described a tax cut as the government writing people a check. I hope you don't mind. I just want to explain it for him. Ed, this is how it works. When people earn money, it's their money. Not the government's money, it's their money. Don't interrupt, I don't want him to lose the thread. Then the government takes some of it away in tax. So if we cut taxes, we're not giving them money, we're taking less of it away. Okay? Got it? And do you know what? While we're on it, who suffers when the wealthy businessman or entrepreneur goes off to live in Geneva? Not him. He's paying about half the tax he'd do if he was staying here. It's those who want to work, because the jobs, the investment, the growth will go somewhere else. Now, we promised that those with the broadest shoulders would bear the biggest burden. And with us, the rich will pay a greater share of tax in every year of this Parliament than in any one of the 13 years under Labour. Under Labour. We haven't forgotten what it was like under Labour. We remember who spent our golden legacy, who sold our gold, who busted our banks, who smothered our businesses, who racked up our debts, who wrecked our economy, who ruined our reputation, who risked our future. Who did this? Labour did this, and our country should never forget it. Now, to get our country on the rise, to get Britain on the rise, we need a whole new economy, more enterprising, more aspirational. And it is taking shape already. We're getting back our entrepreneurial streak. Last year, the rate of new business creation was faster than any other year in our history. Let me repeat that. The rate at which new businesses started was faster last year than ever before. We are making things again. We had a trade surplus in cars for the first time in almost 40 years. And it's not just the old industries that are growing, it's the new ones. We're number one in the world for offshore wind, number one in the world for tidal power. We've got the world's first green investment bank. Britain leading, Britain on the rise. We're showing we can do it. Look at the new investment that is coming in. In the last 2 years, Google, Intel, Cisco, the big tech firms, they've all set up new bases here. And we are selling to the world again. When I became Prime Minister, I said to the Foreign Office, those embassies you've got, turn them into showrooms for our cars, department stores for our fashion, technology hubs for British startups. Yes, you're diplomats, and as William said in that fantastic speech, you're the best diplomats on the globe. But you also need to be our country's sales force. And when we look what's happening, in just 2 years, our exports to Brazil up 25%, to China up 40%, to Russia up 80%. There are so many opportunities in this world. And I want to tell you briefly about just one business that is really seizing them. It's run by a guy called Alistair Lukies. He and his partner saw a world with almost 6 billion mobile phones, but just 2 billion bank accounts. They saw this huge gap in the market, and they started a mobile banking firm, helping people in the poorest parts of the world manage their money and start new companies using their mobile phones. Now, Alistair has been with me on trade missions all over the world, and his business is booming. Back in 2010, when we came to office, they employed about 100 people. Now it's more than 700. Back then, they were nowhere in Africa, nowhere in Asia. Now they are the global player with 1 million new users every month. So don't let anyone tell us that Britain can't make it in this world. We are the most enterprising, buccaneering, creative, dynamic nation on earth. And to those who question whether it's right for me to load up a plane with business people, whether we're flying to Africa, Indonesia, the Gulf, or China, whether we're taking people from energy, finance, technology, or yes, defense, I say this: there is a global battle out there to win jobs, orders, and contracts, and in that battle, I believe in leading from the front. But to get our economy on the rise, there's a lot more that we need to do, and frankly, there's a lot more fights to be had. Because there are too many people out there that I would call the yes but no people. The ones who say, yes, our businesses need to expand, but no, we can't reform planning. It's simple. For a business to expand, it needs places to build. If it just takes too long, they will just build elsewhere. I visited a business the other day that wanted to open a big factory right outside Liverpool. But the council was going to take so long to approve the decision that they're now building that factory on the continent. And they're taking hundreds of jobs with them. If we are going to be a winner in this global race, we have got to beat off this suffocating bureaucracy once and for all. And then there are those who say, yes, of course we need more housing, but no to every development and not in my backyard. Now look, house building isn't just a vital engine of our economy. It goes much, much wider and bigger than that. It's okay for my generation. Many of us have got on the ladder. But do you know the average age that someone buys their home today without help from their parents? It is 33 years old. We are the party of home ownership, and we cannot let this go on. So yes, we're doubling the discount for buying your council house. We're helping first-time buyers with 95% mortgages. But there's something else we need to do, and that is accept that we need to build a lot more houses in Britain. There are people, young people, who work hard, year after year, but they're still living at home. They sit in their childhood bedroom, looking out the window, dreaming of a place of their own. And I want us to say, you are our people, we're on your side, we will help you achieve your dreams. Now, if we want our people to rise, so Britain can rise, we must tackle welfare. Here are 2 facts for you. Fact 1, we spend £80 billion a year on welfare for working-age people. Not pensions, just welfare for working-age people. And that is 1 in 8 of every pound that the government spends. Fact 2, more of our children live in households where nobody works than almost any other nation in Europe. Let me put it simply. Welfare isn't working, and this is a tragedy. Now, our reforms are just as profound as those of Beveridge 60 years ago. He had his great evils to slay: squalor, ignorance, want, idleness, and disease. Here are mine. First, unfairness. What are hard-working people who travel long distances to get into work and pay their taxes meant to think when they see families, individual families, getting 40, 50, 60,000 pounds of housing benefit to live in homes that these hard-working people could never afford themselves? It is an outrage, and we are ending it by capping housing benefit. The second evil, injustice. Here is the choice that we give our young people today. Choice 1, work hard, go to college, get a job, live at home, save up for a flat, and as I've just said, that can feel like forever. Choice 2, don't get a job, sign on. Don't even need to produce a CV when you do sign on. Get housing benefit, get a flat, and then don't ever get a job or you'll lose a load of that housing benefit. We must be crazy. So this is what we've done. Now you have to sign a contract that says you do your bit and we'll do ours. It requires you to have a real CV, and it makes clear you have to seek work, you have to take work, or you will lose your benefit. And we are going to look at ending automatic access to housing benefit for people under 25 too. Let me put it like this. If hard-working young people have to live at home while they work and save, why should it be any different for those who don't? The next evil, bureaucracy. Sign on, sign here, come back in a fortnight, repeat as required. What does this do for the guy who's been out of work for years, even decades, who's playing computer games all day, living out some fantasy because he hates his real life? For people like him, we've got to do something new, and we are. The work program takes the money we're going to save from getting people off the dole, and it uses it today to get them into work with proper training. We're prepared to spend up to £14,000 on one individual to get them into work. And already, almost 700,000 people have got onto the work program. So I want us to be clear in this party. In British politics today, it is this party that is saying, no one is a write-off, no one is hopeless. And with Ian Duncan Smith leading this revolution, let us be the party that shows there is ability and promise in each and every one of our citizens. And just one more thing on welfare. You know our work experience program, where we give young people a chance to work in a supermarket, in a shop, or in an office? Here's what one trade union official said about it. I quote, "The scheme belongs back in the 19th century, along with Oliver Twist and the workhouse. It is nothing short of state-sponsored slavery." What a snobbish, appalling, outdated, wrong-headed attitude to the idea of work. We're not sending young people up chimneys, we're giving them a chance. What is cruel is not asking something of people, it's when we ask nothing of them. Work isn't slavery, it's poverty that's slavery. And let it again be us, the modern, compassionate conservatives, who lead the fight against poverty in Britain today. To help people rise, to help Britain rise, there is a third crucial thing we have to do: educate all our children. And I mean really educate them, not just pump up the grades each year. In maths, in science, in reading, we've fallen behind. Not just behind Germany and Canada, but behind Estonia and Australia too. This is Britain's Real School report, and it reads, "Must do better." Now, you've heard of pushy parents sharp elbowing their way to a better education for their children. This is a pushy government. And my approach is very, very simple. I've got 2 children in primary school, and I want for your children what I want for mine: to go to schools where discipline is strict, where expectations are high, and where no excuses are accepted for failure. And I don't want great schools just to be the preserve of those that can pay the fees or buy the nice house in the catchment area. I want those schools to be open to every child in every neighborhood. And the reason I know that every child can go to a school like this is because with this government, more and more new ones are opening. Now, you've heard from some of them this week, not just the 79 new free schools with over 100 more to come, but you've heard from some of the more 2,000 academies that we have helped to create. These are state schools, but given all the freedoms and carrying all the high expectations of private schools. Yes, that is my plan. Millions of children sent to independent schools in the state sector. It is a genuine revolution that's underway. The Harris Academy in Peckham, it has increased the number of students getting 5 good GCSEs from 12% when it was under local authority control to almost 90% now. The transformation has been astonishing. And you know what? The methods have been conservative. Smart uniforms, teachers in suits, children taught physics, chemistry, and biology, not soft options. Children set by ability, with excellence applauded, extra resources for those in need, but no excuses for slacking. And when you see, as a parent, schools like that, it just prompts one question: why can't every school be that way? Why can't all our children have those chances? It's not because parents aren't ambitious enough. Most of these schools are massively oversubscribed. It's because the old educational establishment, the left-wing local authorities, the leaders of the teacher unions, the Labour Party theorists, it's because they stand in the way. When we saw a badly failing school in Haringey and we wanted to turn it into an academy, the Labour Authority, the Labour MP, and the teaching unions all said no. When inspirational teachers and parents in Hammersmith, in Norwich, in Bristol, in Wigan, when they wanted to open free schools, the left-wing establishment said no. When we've proposed more pay for good teachers, getting rid of bad teachers, longer school days to help children learn, flexible school hours to help parents work, more stretching exams for those who are really able, less nonsense about health and safety, the left-wing establishment have said just one thing: no. And you know what? When you ask them, why is a school failing? Why aren't the children succeeding? You hear the same thing over and over again. What can you expect with children like these? These children are disadvantaged. Now, of course, we want to tackle every disadvantage. But isn't the greatest disadvantage of all being written off by those so in hock to a culture of low expectations that they've forgotten what it's like to be ambitious, to want to transcend your background, to overcome circumstances, to succeed on your own? It is that toxic culture of low expectations, that lack of ambition for every child, which has held our country back. And I can tell you, and let me tell you a thing or two about Michael Gove and I. We are not waiting for an outbreak of sanity at the headquarters of the NUT. We're not waiting for some great embrace of aspiration in the higher reaches of labor before we act, because our children cannot wait. So when people say, please, slow down your education reform so somehow adults can learn to adjust them, I say no. I want more free schools, more academies, more rigorous exams, more expected of every child in every school. And to those who say, and some do, he wants children to have the kind of education he had at his posh school. Do you know what I say? Yes, you're absolutely right. I went to a great school. I want every child to have that sort of education. I'm not here to defend privilege. I'm here to spread it. I don't have a hard luck story. My dad was a stockbroker from Berkshire. But it's only when your dad is gone that you realize not just how much you miss them or how much you really love them, but how much you really owe them. My dad influenced me much more than I ever thought. He was born with no heels on his feet, with legs that were about a foot shorter than they were meant to be. But he never complained, even when he lost those legs later in his life. Because disability in the 1930s was such a stigma, he was an only child, probably a lonely child. But my dad was the eternal optimist. To him, the glass was always half full, usually with something fairly alcoholic in it. And when I was a boy, I remember once going for a long walk with him in the village where we lived, and we walked past the church he supported all his life and past the village hall where he took part in unbelievably long parish council meetings. And he told me what he was most proud of. And it was simple. It was working hard from the moment he left school and providing a good start in life for his family. Not just all of us, but helping his mum too when his father ran off. Not a hard luck story, but a hard work story. Work hard. Family comes first, but put back into the community too. There's nothing complicated about me. I believe in working hard, caring for my family, serving my country. And there's nothing complicated about what we need today. This is still the greatest country on earth. We showed that again this summer, 22nd in world population, 3rd in the medals table. But it's tough. These are difficult times. We're being tested. How will we come through it? Again, it's not complicated. Hard work, strong families, taking responsibility, serving others. As I said on the steps of number 10 Downing Street, before walking through that door, those who can should, those who can't, we will always help. The job of this party, of this government, is to help bring out the best in this country, because at our best, we are unbeatable. We know Britain can deliver because we've seen it time and time again. This is the country that invented the computer, defeated the Nazis, started the web, saw off the slave trade, unraveled DNA, fought off every invader for 1,000 years. We even persuaded the Queen to jump out of a helicopter to make the world smile. There's nothing we can't do. Can we make Britain the best place in the world to start a business, to grow a business, to help that business take on the world and win? Yes. Can we, the people who invented the welfare state in the first place, turn it into something that rewards efforts, that helps keep families together, that really helps the poorest with a new start in life? Yes. And can we take those schools and turn out students that will take on the brightest in the world? Yes, of course we can. Let us here in this hall, here in this government, together in this country, make this pledge. Let us build an aspiration nation. Let us get Britain on the rise. deficit paid down, tough decisions taken, growth fired up, aspiration backed all the way. We know what it takes to win in the tough world of today, to win for all our people, to win for Britain. So let us get out there and do it.